Well, Joe, when I said crime is soaring, he said, no, crime has gone down. I said, where did you hear that one? Crime has gone down. I mean, I'm debating with this guy, but I've had that.
Well, there was amended FBI statistics that came out after that showed that crime had gone up substantially.
And by the way, the statistics were a fraud because when they put out the statistics, they didn't include some of the worst places. They didn't include some of the worst cities, some of the most deadly places. But when the real numbers came out, I turned out to be right. But
you turned out to be right, but then there's another problem. Unreported crime is way up because people have lost. Look, the morale that the police department has in a lot.
I hate this argument, dude. Unreported crime is not murder. What they're talking about with respect to unreported crime is like minor crime, petty theft, things of that nature. How the do they know unreported crime is up if it's unreported? Because there's a national survey conducted on have you reported a crime that has taken place. Like this is a pretty common thing. It's one of the many methods of figuring out what crime looks like in the country. The problem there, however, is that they try to make it seem like these massive crimes are going unreported and going unsolved when that's not the case. A real part of the problem with respect to unreported crime, by the way, directly the fault of the police. Virtually every single person in this chat, I'm sure at a certain point in their lives have actually had to deal with cops in this regard. A crime has occurred where someone stole your phone or someone stole this or that, okay? And you went to the cops and they were like, yeah, dog, nothing we can do about it. Sucks to suck. It's happened to me. I used to be a fucking broke boy. And back when I had a phone and losing a phone was of ginormous consequence to me, a massive financial penalty. I went to the cops. I was like, yo, my phone got stolen. I know where it is. Can you go and retrieve it? They were like, no. And ever since then, I'm like, okay, when shit gets stolen, there's not really much you can do. That's not because there is a woke, there's woke police officers out there that are like, nah, we love criminals. It's because they're ginormous dipshits with massive salaries and Nordic style pension plans that are ultimately seen as infallible, that get to do whatever the they want with no repercussions whatsoever, and we don't even expect them to do their jobs. That's the problem. We have a massive problem with policing in this country, and yet dumb Americans still think it's like one of the best institutions that we have to offer. It's so goddamn frustrating. And it's not about like abolishing the police, okay, in its entirety and assuming that society will be fine without any sort of like representation that there are rules and there's some sort of like some semblance of law and order. The problem is the people that are supposed to do that, their presence does not invoke law and order. Their presence invokes lawlessness and disorder. But many people don't realize that because we have a shit ton of pro-police media and everyone just thinks that they're fucking awesome. And the media rarely ever covers their criminal activities in the same vein as they would if a bunch of people are doing crime that are poor. That's the problem. I want cops to do their jobs, okay? I don't want them to dick around in a fucking subway station, playing Candy Crush or whatever. I don't want their presence in every fucking aspect of American existence. I want them to actually do their fucking jobs when necessary. Detective work, that sort of shit. Solve crimes, retrieve stolen assets. And I promise you, they don't need $7 quintillion dollars a day to be able to accomplish this feat. Their budgets have expanded, their toys get shinier, and yet they are just genuinely god awful at doing their jobs.
A lot of these cities where they've done this defund the police bullshit,
right?
The morale of these poor cops, it's fucking horrible.
Yeah, dude, it's the morale of the cops. See, I need you guys to understand something. The reason why they have to make this argument is because we've given them everything. We have given them everything. So they can't be like, oh, the budgets are not enough. That's why they're just like underfunded. They can't say that. So they have to find another reason. They simply cannot say that policing as a institution is fundamentally flawed, both historically and in contemporary society in the United States of America, and that they need accountability, they need more transparency, and they actually need to do their jobs. Nobody wants to say that because, once again, due to a shit ton of pro-police media, due to our understanding of the police, due to the fact that a lot of wealthy people also like the police, they see them as like the line of defense against them and the fucking pores, most people have a generally positive attitude about the police. So, in a circumstance like this, people cannot comprehend that this supposedly infallible institution is actually dog shit. So they have to look for an alternative reason. What could it be? You can't say it's the budget because in every fucking township, cops take up the largest percentage of the fucking budget. So what could it be? Oh, it's because we're being too mean to them.
Yeah, it's the dumbest idea of all time. But what they've done is they've made these cops feel terrible. They're like good cops. I think cops are just like everybody else. Most of them are great. It's like everybody else. But if you run into one carpenter,
he used to be way more anti-cop, by the way. When he was like more of a libertarian, he was way more anti-cop. Now he's such a fucking rich asshole Republican pussy. He's like, oh, the cop feelings are really up right now,
and he does a shitty job in your house.
Right.
You say carpenters fucking suck, but they don't suck. Most of them are great, and that's the key thing with cops. But the point is, like, they did all of these things in this very foolish way, and these cops are suffering the consequences of it. And so subsequently, what happens is a lot of crime is unreported. A lot of crime, like you call the cops, they're too big.
Yeah, Joe, this is not something that you can understand personally, given that you're worth like $7 quintillion, but most normal people in their day-to-day interactions with cops, it's not good. Okay, they're not exactly unimaginably wealthy comedians, so the only time they talk to a cop is when they're drunk at their comedy show in the goddamn comedy store that they own in the middle of Austin, Texas. It's usually them getting pulled over in the worst moment of their fucking lives. Okay, it's usually in a shitty circumstance. Okay, you're in your lowest moment, and now this guy's coming over to collect revenue for the fucking local for the locality. It's the worst shit of all time. You're like, this fucking sucks. Or something of yours got stolen and you foolishly called the cops to be like, hey, this thing that is, you know, very important to me got stolen. So they come over, if you're lucky, that is, because nowadays they don't even fucking show up. But they come over and they go, oh, I guess we can't do anything about it.
Busy, they can't even get to you. Oh, your house got broken into? Sorry. You know, it doesn't even make a report. There's a lot of people that they just give up.
It's so sad what's happened. And I'll tell you what, I go to police funerals, and we went to one in Long Island. I visited the family in Long Island, a very big deal. It's so dangerous. People don't realize. The car, dark windows, pull over. He's a gentleman. Please pull over. Door opens, guy comes out firing.
First of all, policing, not the most dangerous job, not even barely in the top 20 of dangerous professions. If a percentage of airplane pilots consistently crash planes, we wouldn't say there's a few bad apples, but they're doing a good job. Exactly. Roofing is significantly more dangerous. Lineman, electrician, working as a police officer about 4.1 times as dangerous compared to the average job nationwide. Now remember something, okay? Would you think it appropriate if logging workers, 33 times more dangerous than the average job, would you think it's appropriate if logging workers were just like running around and could just like dome you? Well, after all, they have a very dangerous job. No, of course not. You'd be like, what the fuck? But with cops, we're like, nah, that's valid.
Even if they were allowed to pull out their gun, which they're not, they can't, you know, pull
do
out
it in time.
Gun.
Yeah,
they still wouldn't have time.
It's every cop's worst nightmare.
They open a door. You don't even have an eighth of a second to think, and it is such a dangerous job. That in particular, think of it. You go up to a car, you don't know who's sitting there with a gun, and if they have a gun, you really don't have a chance. You're not allowed to have your gun out, by the way. They have very strict rules. So number one, but even if you could have your gun out, the door opens and bullets start firing out. You know, and especially where they have the dark windows, where they have the darkened windows. It is such a dangerous profession, and it's very hard to get cops now because they're not given any backup.
I can tell I can tell that I haven't talked about like policing and how fucked up of an institution it is in especially the United States of America in quite some time, because I had a lot of like newcomers in the chat, a lot of naysayers being like, what the bad take, bro. You know, I was kind of shocked, and this usually happens when I cycle in and out like a new audience, and it's like, you know, they haven't heard my takes on this shit.
You're right. They have like an eighth of a second to make a decision that's going to change their life. If they make the wrong decision, they're going to end up on the front page of every newspaper in the country, and they're going to lose their house and their pension and their job, and their wife is going to be gone, and everything's going to be gone.
And here's another thing that people don't talk about. How many of them have PTSD? Probably most of them.
Yeah,
these guys are seeing people shot all the time.
Yep.
You know, I've talked to a ton of cops.
Yeah, they're shooting them, dude. What do you mean? It's like, okay, bro, then fucking don't be a cop, I guess. What the
We just have to give them back. You said it so good. You never hear anybody say that. You're never going to have it perfect. You're going to have a bad apple.
In everything, in every profession.
But every time there's a bad apple.
Also, how the f do people that are in this community that understand this exact same argument when we're talking about the IDF don't recognize it when we're talking about cops, which is weird because like the IDF trains American police, by the way. If you didn't know, post 9/11, once again, the IDF trains virtually every fucking local department. Like, so don't really see how you can't fucking square that circle, you know?
Like it's massive publicity and it taints everybody else.
But it's also this very irresponsible thing where people say defund the police, get rid of the police. You know, even Kamala Harris was a part of that. It's a very stupid way to look at it. What you should do is fund the police. You should have better training. You should have cops that feel.
She's never been for defunding the police. She's literally the police, bro. You're talking to a fucking felon. Like, oh my God. You are talking to a fucking felon who's running against a cop, and you're like, oh, I don't understand. Like, why are they fucking saying defund the police? They never have. And it's wrong that they haven't. And here is the demonstration of why it's wrong that they never actually advocated for any sort of like seemingly normal position on this defund the police shit.
Feel more appreciated. You should have something that helps mitigate this PTSD that all of them suffer through.
Right. She was a big part of defund the police. That was a big thing for her. Defund the police. Always defund the police.
Well, it's a political idea,
but
right?
Anybody with that political thought, I don't think should be running for president. And I think people are getting wise to it. You know, we're doing pretty well now. I don't know. Maybe in a week from now, say, sorry about that, I was wrong, but we're leading everything. And I think we're going to have a very good election. But I tell people.
My Dutch brain still has problems comprehending cop culture in America. The cops here are mostly great and rarely ever pull their weapons out or act out of fear of their own life. Yeah. And the funny thing is, there's still issues with policing there too. Okay. There's issues with policing everywhere. The problem is in America, it's so much worse. Like it is so objectively bad